Imagine for a moment that you are sitting in a quiet room, a space where nothing is demanding your attention. All of a sudden, thoughts begin to flood your mind. You remember the past, perhaps a mistake you made or an event that caused you pain. You begin to anticipate the future, worrying about what might happen, creating scenarios that bring discomfort. In these moments, the essence of your being, the silent witness, gets drowned out by the noise of the mind. This is where suffering begins. Suffering is not something that happens to us from the outside. It is a creation of the mind. The mind, in its constant need to label, categorize, and compare, traps us in a cycle of perpetual discontent. The ego, which thrives on separation, convinces us that we are our thoughts and emotions. But what if I told you that this ego is nothing but a story? A narrative we've been taught to believe that defines us by our failures, our achievements, our fears. And so we live under the illusion that we are small, limited, and separate. This is the root of all suffering, the false belief that we are disconnected from the present moment and from our true selves. When we operate from this false identity, we are always looking for something. We are always trying to fill a void, searching for peace outside of ourselves, believing that if we just have the right circumstances, the right possessions, the right relationships, then we will be free of suffering. But the truth is, these external things cannot give us what we seek. They are temporary, fleeting. They are not the source of true fulfillment. The key to transcending suffering is not found in the future, nor in what we've lost in the past. It is found in the present moment. The present moment is where life truly exists. It is not a concept, not a thought, not something that you can control or manipulate. It is the space between your thoughts, the place where you simply are. But the mind resists the present moment. It judges, compares, and tries to escape it because the mind thrives on control. So we continuously push away what is. We resist the natural flow of life, thinking we can alter it. And in that resistance, we create suffering. To release suffering, we must begin by accepting what is exactly as it is. Acceptance does not mean passivity or resignation. It means embracing the current moment with full awareness and without judgment. It is an acknowledgement that the present moment, however it unfolds, is the only place where true peace can arise. When we stop resisting the flow of life, when we stop fighting against what is happening now, we begin to return to a place of peace. But how do we move beyond the mind's grip? How do we stop identifying with our thoughts, which seem so real? It begins with awareness. Awareness is the space in which suffering can no longer exist. When you become the observer of your thoughts, you create a distance between yourself and the mind. You are not your thoughts, you are the witness to them. And in that space of awareness, you begin to realize that you are not separate from life. You are life itself, flowing, expanding, and unfolding in each moment. The key to freedom from suffering is not a future event. It is not something that you need to achieve. It is a shift in awareness. It is returning to the present, recognizing that the essence of who you are, the consciousness that watches over the thoughts, is already whole, already at peace. You do not need to go anywhere to find this peace. You do not need to change anything in your life. All that is required is to stop identifying with the mind and return to the present moment, to experience life as it is, without resistance. The ego is constantly at work, defining us by our past, predicting our future, and keeping us trapped in the present moment with thoughts of inadequacy, fear, or desire. It thrives on separation from others, separation from the world around us, and most importantly, separation from our true nature. The ego constantly reinforces the idea that we are individual, isolated beings. It whispers in our minds, telling us that we are incomplete, that we need something or someone to fill the void. It makes us believe that we must control the world around us, that we must constantly strive for something more, something better to be whole. But in this constant striving, we lose touch with who we really are. We become so engrossed in the story the ego tells that we forget that we are not the story at all. The ego makes us believe that we are our thoughts and emotions, that our identity is tied to what we think and feel in any given moment. When we identify with the ego, we become prisoners to our own minds. We suffer because we believe we are limited by the labels we carry: the person who failed, the person who was wronged, the person who isn't good enough. We believe that we are our pain, our sorrow, our insecurities. The ego keeps us focused on external circumstances as the source of our happiness or unhappiness. It creates an endless cycle of desire and fear, where we constantly seek to attain something or avoid something else, believing that achieving or avoiding will lead to peace. But the peace the ego seeks is fleeting and always just beyond reach. We are taught that happiness lies in obtaining the right possessions, the right job, or the right relationship. But when we tie our sense of self to external conditions, we create a fragile, unstable sense of identity. As soon as those conditions change, when we lose a job, a relationship ends, or we face a setback, we feel as if we've lost ourselves. The ego becomes disoriented and we feel the deep pain of disconnection. As we become more aware of the ego's influence, we can begin to detach from it. We no longer need to seek validation from the outside world, because we realize that our true worth does not depend on external circumstances. We begin to live from a place of inner peace, free from the constant chatter of the mind, and we can experience life as it is, without the filter of ego-driven thoughts and judgments. This shift in consciousness is not a one-time event, but an ongoing process of awakening to the truth of who we are. It requires us to consistently observe our thoughts, to notice when the ego takes hold, and to gently return to the present moment, where we are free from the illusion of separation. The more we practice this, the more we begin to experience life from a place of wholeness, unity, and peace. In this space, suffering dissolves because we no longer see ourselves as separate from the world around us. We are connected to everything, to the present moment, and to the essence of our true nature. We live in a world where the mind is constantly active, always moving from one thought to the next, as if it cannot be still. It jumps between the past and the future, constantly dwelling on what has already happened or what might happen next. The present moment, however, is often overlooked. We are so consumed by the constant noise of the mind and the mind's focus on what is not here, that we forget to fully engage with the only moment that truly exists, the present. The present moment is the space in which life is experienced. It is the only time that is real. The past is a collection of memories fragmented and distorted by time, and the future is nothing more than an imagined projection of possibilities. Both are created by the mind, and yet neither one truly exists. The past is gone, and the future has not arrived. The present moment is all we have, and yet it is often overlooked, dismissed, or taken for granted. But when we constantly dwell in the past or the future, we miss out on the richness of the present moment. The present is where life happens. It is where we feel, where we breathe, where we are truly alive. The beauty of a sunset, the warmth of a hug, the taste of a meal, all of these experiences are only possible when we are fully present. When we are constantly lost in thought, we lose touch with these simple yet profound moments of life. We are distracted, detached, and unaware of the miracles unfolding all around us. Living in the present moment does not mean rejecting the past or ignoring the future. It does not mean that we should not learn from our experiences or plan for what lies ahead. What it means is that we must learn to be fully engaged in the now, to be aware of the thoughts and emotions that arise without letting them dominate or control us. When we can live in the present, we can access a deeper level of awareness, a space of stillness and peace that transcends the fluctuations of the mind. The present moment is also where we find true freedom. When we are trapped in the past, we are often burdened by guilt, shame, or regret. When we are consumed with the future, we are anxious, fearful, and restless. But when we are truly present, we experience a sense of liberation. In the present moment, we can let go of our need for control, of our need to fix the past or worry about the future. We can simply be. And in that beingness, we find the freedom that we seek. To truly experience the present moment, we must learn to quiet the mind, to observe the thoughts that arise without identifying with them. We must allow ourselves to feel whatever emotions arise without judgment or resistance. This is not about suppressing or avoiding emotions, it is about being with them, experiencing them fully without getting lost in them. When we stop resisting the present moment, we allow it to unfold naturally without the interference of the mind. This practice of being present is not always easy. The mind has a strong pull and old habits of thought are deeply ingrained. But with awareness and practice, we can begin to shift our focus from the past and future to the present. We can learn to anchor ourselves in the now, to find joy in the simplicity of life, to experience each moment as it is, without needing to change it. As we do this, we begin to notice how much more alive we feel, how much more connected to the world around us. We begin to see that life is not something that happens to us, but something that we are an integral part of. The present moment is not something we need to search for or achieve. It is always here, always available. The more we embrace it, the more we come to realize that in the present moment, everything we need to experience peace, joy, and fulfillment is already within us. The present moment is the doorway to all of this, and when we enter it fully, we step into a world of endless possibilities. Acceptance of what is about letting go of our need to control. We live in a world where control is often seen as a sign of strength, of power, of success. We are taught that if we can control our environment, our emotions, our relationships, we will be happy. But the truth is, control is an illusion. We cannot control the external world, nor can we always control how we feel. The more we try to control things, the more we end up resisting what is creating conflict and tension within ourselves. True peace comes not from trying to control life, but from accepting it as it is, trusting that everything is unfolding as it should, even if we don't understand it in the moment. This acceptance is not passive, it is an active choice. It is the decision to stop fighting with reality, to stop resisting what is happening right now. Acceptance means embracing our feelings as they are, without trying to push them away or judge them as good or bad. When we feel anger, sadness, or fear, instead of resisting these emotions or trying to suppress them, we can simply allow them to be. We can acknowledge their presence and understand that they are not permanent, they are just passing through like clouds in the sky. The more we resist, the more we prolong the experience, the more we accept, the more we allow ourselves to move through it, finding peace in the process. When we accept what is, we also release the burden of expectations. Much of our suffering comes from the gap between what we expect life to be and what it actually is. We imagine how things should be, how people should act, or how we should feel. These expectations create a disconnect between reality and our desires, and in this disconnect suffering thrives. But when we drop the shoulds, when we allow life to be as it is, we find that the moment becomes enough. We are no longer waiting for something to change in order to be happy. We stop projecting our desires onto the future and begin to experience peace in the present. Acceptance also means embracing uncertainty. We often try to find security in the future, whether it's through planning, worrying, or striving for outcomes that we believe will guarantee our safety or happiness. But the future is uncertain, and no amount of planning or control can guarantee the outcomes we desire. When we accept the uncertainty of life, we let go of our need to predict and manipulate it. We realize that the only certainty is the present moment, and in that realization we find freedom. This doesn't mean that we are passive or indifferent to our circumstances. Acceptance is not about giving up on ourselves or our desires. It is about recognizing that the present moment, in all its imperfection and unpredictability, is all we truly have. And when we embrace it fully without resistance, we allow life to unfold naturally with ease. We can still take action, make decisions and create change, but we do so from a place of peace, not from a place of resistance or desperation. We act with the understanding that whatever happens, we can accept it because we know that everything is part of the larger flow of life. Ultimately, acceptance of what is opens us to the possibility of transformation. When we stop fighting against reality, we stop draining ourselves with frustration and anger. We create space for clarity, for understanding, and for the natural unfolding of the next step on our journey. In this space of acceptance, we are no longer burdened by the past or the future. We are free to experience life as it is, fully present and at peace. We live in a world dominated by thought. Our minds are constantly active, processing, analyzing, planning, judging, and creating narratives about who we are and what we experience. We tend to believe that we are our thoughts, that we are defined by the stories our minds tell us. We identify ourselves with our thoughts, our opinions, our memories, and our desires, and in doing so we become trapped in a cycle of mental activity. But there is something deeper within us, a consciousness that exists beyond thought, a stillness that is always present, waiting to be realized. The mind, in its constant activity, often prevents us from connecting with this deeper consciousness. Thoughts arise without our control, pulling us into the past or future, creating a sense of separation from the present moment. The ego, which thrives on the mind's activity, keeps us tethered to these thoughts, convincing us that we are the sum of what we think. But the truth is, the essence of who we are is not in our thoughts at all. Our true nature is consciousness itself, awareness that is present in every moment, regardless of what thoughts may arise. This consciousness is the space in which thoughts appear, not the thoughts themselves. It is the silent observer, the witness that is aware of the mind's activity without being caught up in it. This awareness is always available, but we often overlook it because we are so attached to our thoughts. We rarely pause to simply be aware of our awareness. We are constantly in motion, moving from one thought to the next, not realizing that beneath the surface of this mental activity is a vast and still presence, free from the confines of thought. To experience consciousness beyond thought, we must learn to step back from the constant stream of mental activity. We must observe the thoughts as they arise without identifying with them. Thoughts are like clouds passing through the sky of our consciousness. They come and go, but they do not define us. When we become the witness rather than the thinker, we begin to create a gap between ourselves and the thoughts that arise. This gap is the space of pure awareness, a place where we can simply be, without the need to define ourselves through thought. This is not a denial of the mind or of thought. Thought has its place and serves a purpose, but it is not the totality of who we are. When we are fully identified with our thoughts, we lose touch with the deeper awareness that lies beneath them. We begin to see ourselves as our thoughts, the angry thought, the fearful thought, the self-judging thought, but in reality, these are just passing mental phenomena. They are not who we are. When we move beyond identification with thought, we discover a deeper sense of self, one that is not bound by mental patterns, beliefs, or judgments. This deeper consciousness is not something we need to search for or attain. It is already present always. The very fact that we are aware of our thoughts proves that we are not our thoughts. Awareness itself is the key. When we stop identifying with our mental chatter and start observing it, we can begin to access this deeper state of consciousness. We are not looking for something new or different. We are simply awakening to what has always been here. In this state of consciousness beyond thought, we experience a sense of spaciousness and freedom. The constant noise of the mind fades into the background, and we are left with a pure sense of being, a presence that is not defined by the past or the future, but by the simplicity of the present moment. This is where peace resides, not in the thoughts we think, but in the awareness that watches over them. It is in this space that we are free from judgment, from fear, from the limitations of the mind. We are simply here, fully alive, fully present, experiencing life as it is. The mind is a tool, but it is not who we are. When we identify with the mind, we become trapped in a world of duality, of right and wrong, of past and future, of good and bad. But when we connect with consciousness beyond thought, we transcend this duality. We experience life as one whole and complete. We begin to see the interconnectedness of all things and recognize that we are not separate from the world around us. We are a part of the flow of life just as every other thing is, and in this realization we find a deep sense of peace. Living from consciousness beyond thought does not mean that we no longer think or engage with the world mentally. It means that we do so from a place of awareness, from a place of stillness. We are no longer controlled by the mind or the ego. We can think, plan, and act, but we do so with clarity and purpose, not from a place of unconscious reactivity. We are the conscious creators of our experiences, rather than the passive observers of our thoughts. As we deepen our connection with this consciousness beyond thought, we begin to experience life in a new way. We become more present, more aware, and more connected to the world around us. We begin to realize that our true essence is not found in the mind or in our thoughts, but in the pure awareness that lies beyond them. And in this awareness we find the peace, freedom, and joy that we have always sought. In conclusion, the path to true peace and fulfillment lies not in changing our external circumstances or in constantly striving for something more, but in the awareness of the present moment and the acceptance of life as it is. We are not defined by our thoughts, emotions, or past experiences. We are the consciousness that observes them. The ego, with its endless demands and illusions of separation, can be dissolved when we recognize that we are not our minds. Through the practice of living in the present, accepting what is, and connecting with the consciousness beyond thought, we can free ourselves from the cycle of suffering. We realize that peace is not something we attain in the future, but something we access by being fully present in the now, embracing life in its natural flow. The more we align with this deeper awareness, the more we experience the freedom, connection, and fulfillment that come from simply being who we truly are. In this space of stillness and acceptance, we find a profound truth: we are not separate from life, we are one with it.